easier. That's as close as I come to a personal statement of belief. I wrote that song a couple of months after I took over the senior ministership of this church. And this is what I believe, that there is one, and that one is God. And if you're uncomfortable with that term, I don't care, make up another one. Because that God is love, that's all it is. That's all it is. Anytime someone annoys you with the word God, just plug in the word love instead. And if what they're annoying you with doesn't make sense with the word love in there, like as in God hates blah, 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 well, love hates blah, blah, it didn't work, so that's a lie. Just dismiss it. It isn't true. But if it makes sense with the word love, then that is what I call God, which is just the energy and the power and the presence of love. So what we decided to do this January is to kind of spend a couple of weeks going over what our fundamental beliefs here at the Church of One Love are. In case you didn't get it from our title, the Church of One Love, there's only one. There's only one. And our basic tenets of belief, which you can believe or not, there's no rules here, but oneness, a single ultimate reality that we're all part of. Not oneness just with each other, but oneness with every single thing. Every single, one organism. And that one organism is created from, sustained by, and lives through the energy and the power of love, which we call the divine, or God, or Allah, or Fred. Whatever you want to call it, it's love. That reality, that one reality we all share is love in expression, including us. And then the other part, with our title, Church of One Love, many paths, one spirit. Our belief is in interspirituality, that there is a shared mystical experience of ultimate reality, that every single human being, and actually every single organism on this planet, has a share in that ultimate reality. And so that includes, but is way beyond, all the mythologies that have been made up in order to try to explain that ultimate reality. And that's what's wrong with religions, y'all. They came about because people were trying to find language to explain something that there was no language for. And then somebody put language to it, and then somebody went, okay, that's the rules now. Or that's the reality now, that's history now. It's mythology. It's trying to explain the unexplainable, and there are all kinds of different mythologies, and none of the religions agree that much on their mythologies, although some of them are more alike than you would think. But all true religions come down to love, or compassion is what the Buddhists would call it, but it's the same thing. So there is one all-loving presence and power in the universe and in all beings. This power is without judgment, right? It is one thing. You know, what part of your body goes, well, I like my liver, but I hate my toes, right? It's one body. It's one thing. There's no judgment here. There are different experiences, and there are consequences of the different experiences, some of them in which we delight, some of them which we don't like very much, but all of them that we can learn something from. Just different experiences, no judgment. And that this divine love is immanent and transcendent. It means it's right here. You don't have to go anywhere to find it. You don't have to come to the sanctuary. You don't have to kneel in prayer. It's right with you, in you, as you, everywhere you go, all the time. And it is so much larger. It's the whole thing. It's both. It's both. And that love is unnameable, and yet human beings have given it all sorts of names, and all the names are beautiful, and all the names are wonderful, and all the names are usable if they make sense to you. And if no one has made up a name that makes sense to you, I encourage you to make up your own. Make up your own. And this is actually a basic tenet of all the religions. At some point, it's not how they're practiced necessarily, but the Jews have the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one. Just one. Jesus, in his parables, over and over and over again, was demonstrating through the stories that we're all one. Who's my neighbor? The one that needs my help. Who's my neighbor? The one I see. And he also said in John, I and the Father are one. I am in my Father, and you are in me, and I am in you. Duh, one. One. The disciples didn't get it, but he kept saying it in different ways and telling different stories. But he kept saying it because that's the truth. In Hinduism, I want to just read you a little bit from the Upanishads here. It's one of the older, not the oldest, but one of the older Hindu scriptures. In the beginning was only being, one without a second. Out of himself he brought forth the cosmos and entered into everything in it. There is nothing that does not come from him. Of everything, he is the inmost self. He is the truth, the self supreme. You are that. You are that. As by knowing one lump of clay, dear one, we come to know all things made out of clay, that they differ only in name and form, while the stuff of which they are all made is clay. As by knowing one tool of iron, dear one, we come to know all things made out of iron, that they differ only in name and form, while the stuff of which all are made is iron. So through that spiritual wisdom, dear one, we come to know that all of life is one. Ain't that great? Thousands of years ago, that was written. They didn't have any idea there would be all these new thought books written saying the same thing. Right? In the tenets of Buddhism, in the Lotus Sutra, there is this idea of oneness of body and mind, that they are not separate, that your mind is not a separate thing from your body, that it is one. Oneness of life and environment, the 3,000 Realms Sutra tells about that all of the world and all of us is one. We are not separate from what surrounds us. We are not separate from our planet. We're not separate from the air. We're not separate from the ocean. We're not separate. And this tenet that oneness is reality. It's not a goal. We're not trying to get to oneness. It's already happened, y'all. We're already living as one. We just don't recognize it. The only goal is to recognize it and to begin to act upon it. And this idea of interdependence, that if we're all one, everything that happens to you happens to me. Everything that happens to me happens to you. That brings us into compassion, which allows us to come closer to living the truth that we are all one. And then they also say that gratitude is the best way there. Gratitude is the best way to begin to live this reality that's already here, but that somehow we can't acknowledge because we feel so separate. In Islam, their foundational saying, La ilaha illallah, there is no God but God. And if you take that into its more true meaning, and Arabic doesn't translate that well into English. All of my Islamic friends tell me that it's very, very difficult, but the closest translation they can come to is, there is only God. There is only God. There is only God. Here's a poem by the 13th century Sufi poet Sa'di. Human beings come from the same source. We are all one family. If a part of the body hurts, all parts contract with pain. If you are not concerned with another's suffering, we shall not call you human. There is only one. And so The other part of this, which should be included in this idea of oneness, is the idea of unconditional love. Yes, that thing that we call God, that's love itself. How can love be anything but unconditional? Love is love. Is love is love is love. As we like to say, love is love is love. And Jesus, in his story of the prodigal son, that no matter what you do, no matter how far away you get, you're never actually far. You think you are, but you're never actually removed. And all it takes is one moment of going, oh yeah, I have a home. My home is love. All I have to do is allow myself to go there. And I will be greeted in love. I will be held in love. I will be feasted and celebrated in love. And the cool thing is, you don't have to go to the far country and come back. All you have to do is have a thought of separation that takes you away from that idea of one love, and then have a thought that brings you back. Oh yeah. And guess what? I don't anticipate that in my lifetime I will be able to live knowing oneness at all moments, at all times. If you want to know whether that's true, all you have to do is hang around with me for like 15 minutes. And then suddenly something doesn't go my way, and I'm like, why is this happening? Yeah, right? And yet, every moment that I do that is an opportunity for me to go, wait a minute, life is what it is, and if I believe it's love, then it's love, which means there is something for me to live. Nothing's wrong with what's out here. I need to align and adjust in here so that I can appreciate the truth of what is that one reality, that oneness. And that is my opportunity to come back to love over and over and over and over again. And really, if you think about it, it's kind of a gift to forget love 70 times a day, because then you can remember love 71 times a day. Or, as Jesus said at some point, 70 times 7. His disciples asked, how often are you supposed to forgive somebody? How many times? Like 7? And Jesus said 70 times 7. And no, he didn't mean 490 times. He meant as many times as it takes for you to remember and stay there. As many times as it takes for you to remember love, you get to remember love over and over and over again until the time comes when we can stay there. At which point, I feel like I will probably ascend. You won't see me anymore. But as many times as it takes to remember. And the people who were really into the rule book and trying to trick Jesus all the time, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they were all like, yeah, but here's the rules, man. We're the priests. We know the rules. So what is the greatest commandment? There's 10 of them. What do you think is the greatest commandment? And he said, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all my mind. This is the first and greatest, and the second is like unto it. Love thy neighbor as thyself. And what I would say is that those are not two different things. Loving my neighbor is loving God, because if you are God, if God is in you and God is in me, then every time I love you, I'm loving God. And every time I reject you, I'm rejecting God. No judgment about that. No judgment, just consequences. Every time I decide that you're not worthy of love, I close love off in my own heart. You get that? As Martin Luther King said so beautifully, where was it? He did say it. This idea of loving the individual who does the deed while hating the deed itself, because hate destroys the hater as well as the hated. I've said this many times before, and I'm going to say it again, because it's the thing that I most need to remember when I look around in the world at things that are happening where it seems like there's a lot of hate around. Hate never wins. It never wins until the moment it wins in me. When I let what's out there cut me off from my love, then hatred has won in that moment. The good thing is I get to remember again and again and again and again and come back to love. And yet, how wonderful would it be not to have to go through that pain and remember the love in the first place, even if I can't feel it, just to take it around with me as, okay, this is love, not seeing it, don't know how this is going to play out, but this is love. And if I can't ever see how this is love, I can see how I can be love. I can express love. I can live love. I can remember love. I can give love. I can receive love. And every moment that I do that, I am bringing more love to the one, because we're all one. And every moment that I let hatred win in me, I am bringing hatred to the one, because we're all one. And so I believe, this is very important, and we're going to talk about this next week, not just what our beliefs are, but how do we live them? Because that's really the hard part. That's really the hard part. But I believe it is especially incumbent upon those of us who have awoken to the idea that love is the ultimate reality, to practice that ultimate reality in every moment that we possibly can, to remember it in every moment that we possibly can, because that's how we evolve. That's how we evolve as a planet, as a species. That's how we evolve the one. Does the one need evolution? Well, the idea, and all of this is made up, all of this is mythology, might be true, might not, but it's a way of thinking about it. The idea is, as in the Upanishads was read, that there was one, and that one decided, I want to come into form. I don't want to always just feel like one. That's easy. I want to come and do all these 10,000 forms and see what that feels like. And remembering the one that we are when we're in these separate forms, remembering that we're not separate when you are there in your body, in your blue sweater, and I'm here in my body, in my burgundy sweater. How are we one? Well, it takes a little work to remember that and to know that. Nancy makes it easy to remember that and to know that. Some people will make it easy for you. Some people will not. But the one person who will most stand in your way of being able to do this is the one wearing your pants right now. Right? It's incumbent upon us who believe in love to our utmost, to the best of our ability, as often as possible, as much as we remember, to hold that truth in our hearts. I believe this. I want to end with a couple of quotes in 1 John. So this is Paul. You know, I don't like Paul, but I end up quoting him a lot. I'm coming to love Paul. So we have come to know and to believe the love that God has for us. God is love, and whoever abides in love abides in God, and God abides in him. And I'm going to close with a short poem by Mary Lou Kaunaki, Everyday Sacred. I bow to the one who signs the cross. I bow to the one who sits with the Buddha. I bow to the one who wails at the wall. I bow to the Om flowing in the Ganges. I bow to the one facing Mecca, whose forehead touches holy ground. I bow to dervishes whirling in mystical wind. I bow to the north, to the south, to the east, to the west. I bow to the God within each heart. I bow to epiphany, to God's face revealed. I bow, I bow, I bow. Thank you. So let's take that idea into meditation for just a couple of minutes, shall we? As we have established that nothing is separate from God, I invite you to breathe God into God right now. The very air is God. Your lungs are God. So allow yourself to feel the miracle of breathing God into God. And to know that as you come to know this about yourself, any moment that you can take a breath of love, provided you in order to continue life. And take that love in and know it is you. And send it out again knowing that it is still love. And now you've put your own individual heart into it and are ready to share it with the rest of the world. And if a thought comes up that feels unlike love, I invite you to just breathe into it. Breathe love into the thought. Breathe it in and breathe it out. And if it's a persistent thought, just keep breathing. 7 times, 70 times 7. The beauty is you're breathing anyway. And every moment that you acknowledge that love is in each breath is a moment that you remember for all of us the truth of who we are. And at this time, in this quiet, in this safe place, with this community of people who are here to learn about love, to live love, to express their love, it's relatively easy to remember to breathe love in and breathe love out again. And as we go into our week, into traffic, into work, into the television and social media, into the voices that don't know love, even though it's who they are, but haven't yet learned to speak love. Rather than letting that throw us off, get us out of the love that we are, we recognize that as a call for love. Here's a place I don't see love. My love must be needed in this very place. And so I send it, I give it, I live it, I breathe it to the very best of my ability from moment to moment to moment, knowing that I'll forget. But allowing myself the grace of knowing that I also will remember. And if I remember one more time, then I forget. Love has won in me, ultimately, which means love has won in all of us. As you breathe in that love, know that that love is power, it is presence, it is energy that forms itself into matter and back into energy, but that never ever disappears. So know your love matters in this world in a very real way. You matter, I matter. matters. So we allow that love to permeate our being. So that we may practice it until it becomes a habit to respond with love, to act in love, to think with love, to speak with love. And to bow only ever to love and nothing less. And so it is. Amen.